Hey there, Trisha back again today with another video for you. Today I'll be featuring two brand new watercolor sets from Art Impressions. I'll be creating this winter truck project using the Watercolor Truck mini set, as well as the new WC Tree Set 1. All the links will be below in case you need to have these as much as I did. So let's get started. First we're going to be using the little truck, and I'm inking it up with some sepia. And I'm going to stamp it towards the bottom of my paper. I want this to be the center image, and I want it to stand out, and I'm going to put some stuff that's going to recede into the background, so I wanted to make sure I had enough room for that. So as with all of our projects, I'm going to be taking some water in my paintbrush and just pulling the color out of the lines. And I start to pull the color out where it's going to be the darkest. So I'm going to go right behind those wheel well or the fenders there and pull some of this sepia in. I'm actually going to use some of the Prussian blue from my palette. So right now I'm just creating some shadows. So underneath this fender and this wheel well is going to be really dark. And then I'm just going to put a little bit of a highlight on top there and pull some color out of these wheels. Those I'm going to add with some sepia in a little while as well from my palette, because the truck, I'm not going to use black, I'm going to use the sepia instead of black. I want this to have a really soft look to it, because again, I'm doing another winter scene for you. You're probably tired of them, I know, but there's only 4 seasons in the year, so I'm going to try to keep my projects within the season we're in. And I still am not done with winter yet, and I'm still praying for snow here, even though for some reason today it's 60 degrees outside in New Hampshire, which is unusual for February 28th. And it doesn't look like there's going to be any snow anytime soon. It's just going to stay warm, which is fine. I would prefer the snow to the warm at this point. So now I'm taking some of this Prussian blue and I'm adding it to the door. As you can see, I put a lot on there, so I'm taking my brush with some water and I'm trying to pick up some of that color. But I wanted the left-hand side of that door to be darker because that's where the shadow would hit it. And I'm thinking I really wasn't paying attention too much to my light source. But where the truck is facing towards the left, that's probably where the light would be hitting it, or the light would be coming from. So if I look at these shadows the way that I did them, I'm gonna assume that I thought it was up in the top left-hand corner. So now I'm just coming in here. I put a nice wash of blue down, and now I'm going to come in and soften up some of those hard edges, and then put a little bit more color where I think those shadows would be on this truck. And if I think I have too much color, I just rinse off my brush and dry it, and then use a dry, thirsty brush to pull some of that color back up. So now I'm putting a lot of color right underneath those wheel wells, because those would be really dark, and I'll let that dry. I'm going to come in a couple more times to do that, because I really like to layer the color. I think you get a better mix of color that way. I'm not sure if mix of color is really the word I want to use. But if you just want to build it up slowly, you don't want to throw it all in there and lose your highlight. You always want to keep a highlight. You don't want to color everything in dark. So I'm coming back in here, and I'm just going to add a little bit more of the shadows in those creases there. I originally wanted to do this as a rusty truck, which I have done with my Copics before, and I'm really good at doing rust with my Copics, not so good at doing rust with watercolors. There's too many colors, and it ends up just being a muddy mess. So I'm going to try to work on learning how to do rust with watercolors, and then maybe I can make this truck a rusty truck in the middle of a field, maybe in the spring or in the summer. So I'm just going in again, putting in another layer of the blue create some of those highlights. That truck, the bed of the truck on the back, those 3 little indents, those would be really dark because they're indented, so I only put the color on the left-hand side, which is where the artist had drawn in the lines, so I kind of followed those lines there. So I'm coming in with some sepia, and I'm going to add some of those to the tire, some sepia to the tires. And you see the tires aren't completely round. The bottom of the tires is cut off. That's so it can look like it's in snow or in a field or something like that. So now I'm taking my African violet and I'm using the fine point of my marker. And I'm coming in here and I'm just drawing in a little bit of snow in the back of the truck. So if this was a spring truck, you could put flowers in there, or you could, if there was fruit, you could put fruit in there, you could put animals in there, you could put whatever you want in there. But seeing that I was doing a winter scene, I wanted to fill my truck up with snow. So now I'm just softening out those lines, and I'm pulling some of that color out into the background because I don't want it to be just sitting there. I wanted to ground it a little bit. So I want it to look like it's in a field. So I'm really, right now, just putting in some light African violet with my brush and my palette, and just drawing in some of those, kind of hilly, because, snow is kind of, when something's sitting in snow, it kind of sinks in. So I wanted that to look like, there was some variation in the snow, and it might be totally sitting back in the back half might be totally in the snow, whereas the front half might not be. And now I'm just taking my brush with some African violet and I'm drawing in a little bit of snow on the hood and on the top of that truck. This is such a fun truck. I was so excited when I saw the new sets. All of them are so awesome and I've been having so much fun playing with them. I couldn't wait for the release because this is just so nice to have another variety of things to do stuff with, and this release is just fabulous. I love it. As soon as I saw it, I was jumping out of my skin. So as you can see, I'm pulling some of that color right out of the front of those tires and in the back because I really wanted the depth that creates. Now, this is the part that I loved. I'm going to put this little barn in the back, and I want it to really disappear into the back, and if I had to do this again, see I stamped it off twice, I would have actually stamped it off 3 times so that it was even lighter than this. As you'll see as I'm painting here, I used a lot of water, and I really tried to fade out those lines because I really didn't want it to take center stage. I really wanted it to sit in the background, which is something that I learned from Sandy Alnock. I took one of her courses, and she really goes into how to make things that they're not supposed to be the focal image, they're just supposed to be in the background, and how to make them appear that they're in the background. So they're really soft and really light, and you can't really make out the shapes all that much. So I kind of think it was a little dark. I thought if I could do it next time, I would do it a lot lighter and maybe stamp it off one more time. So you see here now I'm trying to really fade those lines. I'm keep washing my brush and then pulling more color out. And that way it just really kind of fades out back. You'll notice too, I'm going to be taking some sepia from my palette and adding it to the barn. And I'm trying to do that really lightly. So I'll put color down and then I'll put some water on my brush and I'll really saturate it with water so that it's really light. And then as I go on painting, you'll see that I start using my paper towel and really putting some water on there and trying to lighten that up even more. So I'm going in with, this is where I'm going in with some water and a thirsty brush, and I'm trying to pick up some of that purple, some of that African violet, just to soften it out just a little bit more. And then I'll come in with a little bit more of the sepia. And I'm just putting it really a little more heavy where the shadows would be, but still keeping it really, really light. So I'm taking some African violet, and then I'm going to draw a little bit of the snow. I wanted this to be like a hill, kind of a hilly, I was going to say sidewalk. It's not a sidewalk. I want it to be like the barn was out in a hill of snow. So like there was a hill with a forest behind it. So I draw in the snow, the line of snow with my brush and my palette, and then I just come in with a clean brush and water and soften the line soften it right out. So it's very, very light, and there's a nice hard edge there. So I'm going to put all this African violet down, and then you'll see me later, I come in and I try to just really pick some of that up and soften it. See, I'm kind of taking my paper towel to soften that right up. So this is one of the little pine trees in the new set. And I'm just going to ink up the very top, and you see I'm going to stamp it off quite a few times. I want these to be really, really light. Sometimes I stamp it off twice, sometimes I stamp it off 3 times, because I do want a little variation. I want a couple of darker trees and then some really light ones, because I really want the light ones to fade right into the background. And I didn't use a mask for these trees on the left-hand side of the barn because I really didn't need to. So I kind of just wung it, if that's a word, wung it. And then I use a brush with more water than I usually use to soften those lines out. This is now, I've created my mask, and I'm again taking just the top of that tree, and I'm just stamping it as many times as I can, because I really want some faded ones and I want some ones that are a little darker. So I'm just going to continue to ink it up, stamp it off, and then I kind of jump up and down because I want those trees to not be all in one line. I want them all to be in different heights and different shades, and then I'm just going to come in with some water in my brush and soften those up. And you'll see a couple of times I'll take my paper towel and I'll sop up some of that water or some of that color because it was starting to get a little more darker than I wanted. And I took the mask off because I wanted those trees to butt right up against that house. So I'm just softening. See, now you'll see me putting some water down, softening things up, and then pulling the color right back up with my paper towel. Now you'll see how the truck is very prominent and that barn out in the back is very, very light because it's just an element. I don't want it to be the main element. I want your eye to be drawn to the truck. It's a great technique. So as you see, I'm softening those up and I'm dabbing them off with my paper towel. I think it really kind of looked like it was set far back in the background. I'm just taking a little bit more of my African violet, really watered down, just to make some lines in the middle to make it look like there's snow out there. Just to join the front and the back. You see, I'm trying to sop up a little more of that color. And I'm just going back in one more time just to lighten it up as much as I can. And I just noticed now as I'm doing this voiceover, I didn't put a sky in, which it didn't really need one, which is fine. I'm going in here with a little more of the Prussian blue, just adding a few more shadows, a little bit of darkening darkening up some of these shadows that might have dried back a little bit too much for me. Just a little more of the Prussian blue right there at the bottom of those fenders. Just the little details that, you go back and just make a little bit deeper really makes all the difference in all your projects. And that's it. So now I'm going to sign this and date it. And that's it for our project today. Thank you so much for joining me. If you'd like to see some more videos, click on that subscribe button. And I've linked a couple other videos that I thought you might like down below. Thank you so much for stopping by today, and I really appreciate all of my subscribers, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye.